Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Echelon Cycling Podcast. And today we have our second episode where we basically wrap up the week of what's happened in this very exciting period of pro cycling. And we have plenty on offer today. We have the World Championship in cyclocross, we have the Tour of Valenciana, we have the Saudi Tour, we have the Colombian National Championships, and obviously as well Etoile de Besseges. And obviously, I won't be talking with myself. I'm joined by a frequent guest on the Cycling Dane, Patrick from Outdoes Cycling, and of course our own Mr. Critical himself, Ewan Wilson. And yeah, guys, it's been a very hectic, very crammed cycling week so early on. We're still in the winter months.
I somehow feel like we've had like 2 weeks of racing in one week. I don't know. There's been just so much going on that like at one time I swear we just had like 3 or 4 races in one day. I was struggling to keep on top of it all. It's just one of those times of years where everything overlaps and yeah, results can sometimes go amiss in your memory as you're like, who won what stage of what? So it has been a very interesting week, and yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, exactly that. It's the time of year where we have so many things overlapping, and you can't really tell which one's worth more in terms of its prestige. You don't have any World Tour racing. We're in this limbo, waiting and waiting and waiting for the UAE Tour. We have had some decent, solid, sort of rider checks and some good performances throughout this week.
Well, yeah, we might as well start with the Cyclocross World Championships in Hoogerheide. And yeah, Mathieu van der Poel obviously taking the victory ahead of Wout van Aert. Those two have just been dominating the cyclocross season. It was a bit of a shame Tom Pidcock wasn't there, but not more interestingly, winning five World Championships titles is very interesting. Thibaut Ness as well in the under 23 category, winning the World Championships there. So maybe in the footsteps of his father. But does it tell us anything with Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert basically being so incredible?
I mean, everybody kind of saw it coming, didn't they? We're in a different league, really. Not to be like offensive to the other people in the race or anything, but everybody predicted that this was going to happen, and it was quite an interesting opening lap. We saw like Lars van der Haar was drilling it on the front. I'm not sure if he was like working for Van der Poel or something, like national kind of team whatever. But and then Van der Poel and wow, just f***ed off really. They just went a road for next. However, like 9 laps just by themselves, and then it was just a sprint to the line, and it was just kind of like it was really cool because it was like people like overanalyzing, like I don't know, Van der Poel was better over like the bunny hopping and stuff, and then it was like, oh, how's this going to play out? But yeah, it was a cool race to watch, but not really too much happened between like lap 2 and 8 in a way. But yeah, it's really cool seeing Van der Poel win. Obviously, you got the prediction right, Scott. I did not.
They're so much better than everyone else, and yeah, I think it's a very good precursor for the road season, and potentially we can see these two doing the same thing, but just the Ronde van Vlaanderen, Milan San Remo, Paris-Roubaix, or whatever.
What's also kind of I would say a good signal is that Van der Poel is able to compete at the highest level here, where we were worried that this back problem that he's been talking about was going to take away from that. It might maybe be further down the road season, but the signals we have at the moment seem to be that he's getting better, and he can still do these top level performances. The back problem is not affecting the explosiveness or his sprinting ability. And I think this does show Van der Poel is much, I would say, probably a more sneaky, maybe a little bit more tactically intelligent than Wout van Aert. He's also got that kick that Wout just doesn't have. He's a little bit sharper on a slower sprint if they're coming from like sort of a standing start like they were at the 2020 Ronde van Vlaanderen. Then I think Van der Poel becomes a very difficult guy to beat. And we might be seeing this later this year in the Cobble Classics towards the Ronde van Vlaanderen and towards Gent-Wevelgem and the likes in 2023.
So moving on, Patrick, you were talking about too many races, or both of you were happening. I completely missed the Saudi tour, but that happened. Yeah, anyone want to share what happened?
In summary, Ruben Guerrero won, so that's kind of like the headline. But it was interesting. I mean, Groenewegen took the opening sprint pretty convincingly. Fair play to the Saudi tour. It used to just be that all these kind of Middle Eastern races used to just be a bit of a sprinter fest and really dull to watch, but they have kind of
Tour of
spiced
Qatar, bring back Tour of Qatar.
No.
exactly. But
Crosswinds
like,
everywhere. It was
but
amazing.
They have like, I don't know, they've spiced up the parkours like a bit, haven't they? They've had a couple of, they had like a punchy finish, which is where, what's his name's got? Cern Vanschkel. He won the under 23 TT champ from last year, won a stage Total Avenir. He took a win, which is really cool to see. I was on a very grippy finish as well, which is cool. Jonathan Milan was very outstanding throughout the week. He beat Groenewegen in a sprint. And then, yeah, Guerrero was a lot happier in his win than his Movistar like profile picture shows when he just doesn't look very happy in that. But yeah, I guess that was pretty much what happened in that.
I thought it was a really good week of racing. I actually, dare I say, I think Saudi Tour was my favorite of these three.
Okay. Someone didn't
no,
watch.
no, it was interesting. We didn't have sort of a guy solo away and get a convincing win. It was pretty close all the way. Maybe day one was probably the most convincing victory we saw from Dylan Groenewegen. And then still then we had Dusan Rajovic in second place, a Serbian guy who was picked up by Bahrain. They are a very Balkan or former Yugoslav team with a lot of Slovenian staff and some guys from Croatia. And they picked up Rajovic, who was in the French scene for a couple of years, quite promising. And they've funneled him into this hardy sprinter. And he had a really, really solid week of racing, beginning on stage one. And in Milan, as you said, really pumping through. Søren Varenshold as well, getting that stage win on stage three, which was a fantastic stage if you watched it. We saw lots of late attacks. We weren't sure if it's going to be the climbers or the sprinters. And then right at the end, it was Varenshold who took it, who would not be your winner as such on paper for a finish like this, but he did pull through. And then with the mountain stage, the all-important mountain stage, Ruben Guerrero really coming through and battling it out with Formolo and Buitrago, who both looked like they were on pretty good form throughout the week, attacking on the aforementioned stage three. So I really enjoyed the Saudi Tour. I didn't think I would ever say that, but I did. I liked it, and I think it's good to see that Guerrero has actually sort of made this match work on Movistar, because we often see guys move over to Movistar and just sort of fade away or get swept up in the team's long roster. And I was a little bit worried when I saw Guerrero move from EF to Movistar that he would also get lost in the melee. He would become one of these guys that just sort of ends up working for Enric Mas at the Vuelta and not getting any results for his own Palmares. But he's got this big stage race win already. I'll say big. It's the Saudi Tour, but still, it is a stage race victory under his belt, which he didn't really have before at EF.
Moving on to Etoile de Besseges, one of the bigger, well, I would say it's probably the bigger races of the three. We can argue that, but yeah, it was a very interesting finish nonetheless. And who actually watched this race? I watched the finish. A very impressive time trial at the end, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But Etoile de Besseges, very sprinter heavy focused race normally.
Yeah, it wasn't on GCN unless you had like a NordVPN or whatever to kind of watch it or something. So I didn't actually watch it, but I saw like highlights and stuff, and it was really impressive because I think there was a lot of expectation. I mean, I even thought that Mads Pedersen was really just going to stomp everything and probably win three stages. But I mean, he did win the TT at the end, to be fair. But it was Arnaud De Lie who really came through and was showing how last year him just doing all these 1.1 kind of UCI point farming races wasn't a fluke. You know, he is actually a really strong rider. I think a lot of people expected that, but it's great to see that he's come through out of the winter and he's performing really well. I don't think his schedule says that he's going to Omloop, but you know, like when Ballerini won the other year, I think that De Lie could fulfill a very similar sort of role to that sort of very versatile sprinter. Cobbly sort of hard man, gets through like a very windy Gent-Wevelgem, for example. So yeah, really impressive from De Lie, and some other good results in that race. Like I think Paulus took the win, and yeah, but there was what happened on stage two? Did anybody see that?
Yeah, there was a big crash at about 20 or so kilometers to go. They came onto like a bridge, and at that point, you can imagine what it's like. Half of the peloton is down. It's absolute carnage. We saw Valentin Ferrand. He actually sort of, there's a picture you can see online where he's just gripping onto the side of the bridge, almost about to fall into the river. And he was helped out from the bridge by Axel Laurence of the Alpecin de Koenig team. But at that point, the ambulances, I believe, like the emergency service vehicles, were helping people at the back, and they were at the back of the race whilst the racing still continued. At that point, the race directors took the executive decision to halt racing, to neutralize it, because if there was another accident to happen, it may be the final 10 kilometers from that point onwards, then there wouldn't be any emergency service vehicles that could respond in time, or that would be available to respond. So they took the decision to neutralize the finish. I've never seen this before for that reason, in terms of that being a reason why a race is neutralized. We often see like maybe there's something that's happened on course. We saw it last year's Tour de France when there were protesters. We've seen it in the past in 2015 Tour de France. There was a crash that also neutralized the race, but then the race completely stopped for a bit. There was a pause in the action, where with this one, it was 20K to go. They just carried on and everyone rolled home together. So there was no winner on stage 2. And De Lie held the yellow jersey for another day, which is a shame, because I would have said De Lie probably could have won that stage as well, given that it was a pretty flat sprint into the town of Aube. But alas, it was a wise decision for safety reasons.
I think the first stage was just so ferocious to see De Lie, what he did. He made Mads Pedersen we joked about it, made him look like a junior, but De Lie, he's only 20 years old. It's just, no wonder Patrick Lefevre wants his claws in him.
Mightily impressive, to be honest. De Lie, last season, it was impressive the people he was beating: Cavendish, Girmay, Merlier. Like it was top tier sprinters that De Lie was winning against, but it was in a lot of these sort of like small classics in Belgium, the Ronde van West Brabant, like these kind of small races that don't hold a super amount of prestige, but his team were getting invited to. But this year, I think this is a big step up. We saw already this year. He took a sprint win last week, and now with these wins in a stage race setting alongside Mads Pedersen, for instance, on that finish to Bellegarde, you would say that's Pedersen's kind of stomping ground. He performed really well on that finish to Bellegarde last year. I thought he would repeat that. Even Benoit Cosnefroy, it's a kicker at the end. I thought he also would have the legs to compete and provide a little bit of rivalry to De Lie. But De Lie just burnt them all really in the dust. Even look behind because he turns. Andrea Piccolo is a guy who's similarly got very fast legs at the end of a day like this. But yeah, he really was streets ahead at the Besseges in the sprints.
Okay, we will get to the rest of Etoile de Besseges, but Milan-San Remo is coming up. This is looking frighteningly strong from someone who can sprint and climb as well. Do you think he's the favorite for Milan-San Remo, both of you?
Yes. It's hard because he's only 20 years old. Yes, he's won the Ronde van Memorial race, whatever in Belgium, but they're not almost 300 kilometers in length. It's a very, very different style of racing. Even like Jonas Vingegaard, we see him perform so well at the Tour de France on a 150 kilometer long profile, but we don't see him competing there at a 250 kilometer long classic. De Lie doesn't have that in his legs, so we don't quite know if he is a kind of guy who could win San Remo in terms of the race's length, but he has the attributes to get over all the climbs and to sprint in the finale. He's overcome Biniam Girmay in the past. He's beaten him. You would say Girmay, but also probably going into San Remo as a top 5 favorite to win. De Lie he's just so explosive as well. But then there's also a certain Australian on the squad who's also going to make this one a little bit difficult, because Caleb Ewan, over the past maybe 3 years, there's been murmurs and talk about Caleb Ewan's a guy who could win San Remo. He's come close in the past, been on the podium, but now with De Lie, he's the young new protege for that team. Is he going to command full control of the team instead of Ewan, who has showed in the past that he can compete at the end of a day like San Remo? So it's interesting. We haven't really seen, I mean, I guess Remco maybe in that Lombardia in 2020. We haven't really seen someone come into a monument at this age as such a red hot property.
I think, yeah, I agree. The only time which we've seen De Lie do such a distance was the Britannia Classic last year, where he came 4th. There was Wout, Laurence, Alexander Camp, and then De Lie. And that's a much hillier and tougher parcours than San Remo is. But it's whether is he better at that continuous sort of grinding down process, whereas Milan-San Remo is just like there's a Cipressa and then there's the Poggio, of course, but can he keep up with the big dogs when they go flat out for 5 minutes at the Poggio? That's still to be seen. And like you say, Caleb Ewan might have something to say about the leadership of that team. Because I mean, I listened to when Caleb Ewan was on Geraint Thomas's podcast. I listened to that, and Caleb Ewan was talking about how important it is to have a teammate over the top for Poggio. And I think that he still thinks about when he's finished second twice now. And one of those times is when Trentin didn't work for him. He kind of pinged off the front. So I think Ewan really has a bit of a thing with San Remo, how he really wants to win it. So it's going to be hard for Lotto to decide what's going on there, because you might see a scenario where it's like De Lie and Ewan are both there, and it's like, oh, what if they mess it up? And then like they should have gone with De Lie, or they should have gone with Ewan, or it'll be interesting to see. So yeah, I think De Lie, I'm unwilling to say that he's a favourite, but I think that he's an interesting one to be putting into the mix.
Belgian team as well. That's another thing.
Yeah, but
even if he does win, he still wouldn't be the youngest rider to win this. Like, I find that quite funny. Like, we're in this era where we're thinking that riders are supernatural at young ages, but Eddie Merckx was actually a lot younger than De Lie when he won it.
The thing I'm also struggling with is that, like, for De Lie, we have exactly. Van der Poel, Van Aert, we don't know what he's going to be like against them, because I mean they are guys, they're A-tier guys. De Lie hasn't ridden much on the World Tour, as much as I sing his praises. Yeah, the Bretagne Classic and the Drie Daagse de Panne, that's not 3 days anymore. That's just like the 1 day race. De Lie was in that one. He crashed, but he still finished in a strong position. But he hasn't really ridden that much World Tour level stuff. And you hear riders say, well, the World Tour is a huge step up to these like 2.1 races, 1.pro races, and so forth. So it will be a big change. Also throw in Pogacar, these guys who just want to attack over the climb. It's gonna be stressful. It's gonna be very stressful. San Remo is not a walk in the park. It's not an easy race to win. So it's interesting that he's focusing so heavily on San Remo, given that he's never ridden a monument before and he's never ridden San Remo before. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating choice from Lotto Destiny.
But yeah, I mean, handling Maspilsen on that kind of terrain definitely was that's the whole reason why we're talking about this in the first place, and his sprinting prowess. But nevertheless, Etoile de Besseges, it's not just about Arnaud De Lie. There was other things going on as well. And Matthias Skjelmose Jensen took a stage that completely lit up all of Danish cycling Twitter. Unfortunately, the next day, it went a bit quiet. But Matthias Skjelmose Jensen showing that his Tour of Luxembourg win last year wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, he really just. I think I was really impressed with that, and especially when you consider that, he was really in the mix for a podium place at Worlds, because he was away with Schmidt and somebody else. I can't remember who, it slips my mind. But, if that group didn't finesse as much, it's very easy that Skjelmose would have had a very, prestigious result. Like him finishing, arguably, in my eyes, even if he finished at the back of that group fourth, I think that's still probably the top of his palmarès in terms of a result. Like, it beats Luxembourg GC in my eyes. But yeah, he's clearly just come through the back. He's picked up last season, just where he's left off, just bang, just immediately winning a stage up that climb is just great, especially against Paulus as well, who's no slouch at this time of year. He's been racking in some good results as well. So yeah, Skjelmose, I think I was expecting more of him from the Giro last year, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in a Grand Tour this year.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little bit let down from the Giro, but he's a guy who he's always fighting on the bike. You can see he just always, it's like a boy racer. He's got that energy in him that I think you need really to be a good contender. And this week just shows that he is a super strong guy. He is a guy who could go on to great things. He's still only 22 years old. He was born in September 2000. I mean, the future is bright for him. He's scheduled to start the Tour de France this year if he goes along with that schedule. He's ridden well in France in the past. Don't forget, last year he had a strong performance at the Tour de l'Ain, finishing in second place. And then at the beginning of the season at Tour de la Provence, he finished in third place overall there. So riding in France seems to be his gravy. And a strong result at Etoile de Besseges, it's fantastic. And I mean, missing out by 1 second to Neilson Paulus, it's bitterly close. He'll be thinking about this in his mind. Well, where could that 1 second have come from? But he can lead this race with his head held very high.
1 second, and you have the jersey, everything's in your hands.
I always think it's if you lose a race on the last day, like back when Jai Hindley lost the Giro in 2020 on the final day, you cross the line, like you physically can't, the clock has stopped, but you're still wearing that pink jersey that's usually given to the race leader, but you have lost the race. It's completely done. Skelmos would have had that feeling. It must be such a unique experience, but yeah, not one that's nice, because you're wearing, like, it's almost like a reminder of what you've lost, because you fight for that jersey, yet you lose the race, but you're still wearing it.
But talking about exciting ends to a race, moving on to
Neilson Powless. Can we just have a second of appreciation?
I knew you were going to talk about it.
Neilson Powless. As a Neilson
Here we
Powless
go. 20-minute monologue.
Well, he's had a really, really good start to the season. I've heard that he's been training less than normal, which is surprising given how good he's been. He won the Ouverture, now known as the Marseillaise, in Marseille last week, and then continuing on in this part of the world, very similar sort of area of France with this win. It's fantastic. And also, did you know his mother was a marathon runner? I believe she competed at the 1992 Olympic Games for Guam, and he was also born on a military base. That's your Neilson Powless trivia for today.
I didn't realize Guam competed at the Olympics.
Well, Neilson Powless's mother competed for Guam.
Yeah, yes. But anyway, Neilson Powless aside, no offense, Neilson, if you're listening or watching. But moving on to the Tour of Valenciana, or Tour of Valencia, I was actually there at the first stage and didn't think, well, Biniam Girmay wasn't actually on the start list until very late. He's going to Africa. He's going to do the African National Championships. He's going to go back training in Eritrea before he gets ready for the classics. But on the first stage, Mr. Biniam himself, he struck out, won the stage. And Alti, quite close to Calpe, quite close to where the Intermarché base was for the winter's season as well. But did you guys watch the Tour of Valenciana? Epic finish. We'll talk about that later. But
I watched most of the stages. Yeah, especially that last one. And like the hilltop finishes, I was mainly interested in watching. So I think the first stage was a bit like, is it going to be a sprint? Is it not going to be a sprint? It was quite on the cusp. I think quite a few sprinters perhaps came to this race and were left very empty-handed because they were
Alexander Kristoff.
Just came and just got dropped all day long. But I mean, even Olav Koy, that was a very good climbing performance from one of the most exciting young sprinters. I know we've just been talking about De Lie, but Olav Koy is another one, and he's out of contract at the end of this year. So that's probably something very tempting for a lot of teams, especially when you consider that also, just putting this out here, and then Danny van Poppel's also out of contract, who's considered to be one of the best lead-out men. If you couple those two Dutch guys together, boom, look at that. So I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there. So yeah, that was a cool stage. But yeah, then some other really strong performances in the week, like Thomas Gloag, great performance from him, the youngster from Britain. Great to see him, especially in like Jumbo-Visma, where it's really hard probably. I know it wasn't like the stack team that Jumbo usually bring with like the Roglic's, the Vingegaards, the Wouts, etc. But it's a team where you're going to need to get your elbows out to really fight for some leadership. So getting in that good early season performance is going to really put him in good stead.
A stage race for them and doing so well.
Yeah, but Ciccone was outstanding as well. I really didn't see that coming. UAE had many people there. Arambaru was climbing really well. And just so many other just rogue people, just like, well, where do they come from?
It's the early season that this happens where we get some sort of rogue results. And I mean, we're going to talk about a very rogue result in a sec. But even like Ciccone finding this form at this part of the year, I mean, there was so much hype about Ciccone 6 years ago after he won that Giro stage. And we thought, well, maybe it's going to be this green Italian hope. Didn't quite come into fruition, but you wouldn't say he's a top tier GC guy, but he's defeating these top tier GC guys. Well, Ciccone, Sasha Vlasov, Mikel Landa at the end of a race like this, it is impressive. And I also was happy to see that he did his signature celebration that he's now doing, where he sort of rips off his sunglasses, throws them into the crowd. He did it at his 2 Giro stages in 2019 at Ponto di Legno, and then last year as well at Konya. And he did it here in Valenciana. So Ciccone, very on brand for him. And Trek Segafredo, who've had a good week, get another big win. But it wasn't quite to be for Ciccone.
I mean, I was going to say Trek Segafredo going into well,
Okay, yeah.
yesterday, so Saturday into Sunday, they were on the cards to win 2 stage races in 1 week. Like that would be quite incredible. And then they managed to lose both of them, which is a bit of a sad prospect for them. But yeah, Bahrain were very animated in this race, I think, as well. On the first stage, they were largely responsible for Biniam Girmay getting that sprint against not that many pure sprinters, and they were also very well in the closing moments of the final stage. They were trying to drag back many of the key contenders and get Fred right into the sprint, we think. So yeah, very animated. Didn't really come with anything, but they had Landa and Bilbao here. Bilbao flying back from Tour Down Under. But yeah, is the result you're going to mention, is it a certain Theo Gegenhardt?
Oh no, I was thinking more about Rui Costa, but yeah, take Gegenhardt winning the stage. We also forgot to mention that he got relegated the day before for affecting Chicana, which meant that he, after the stage win, he didn't get the jersey. If he wasn't relegated, then he would have been leading the race. But it's good to see him fight back here from the Giro. Also, for me, I'm really happy to see Laurens de Plus back. I think he's a really, really talented rider. Showed signs of it when he was with Quick Step years ago. Moved to Jumbo, was a really, really strong aspect of the 2019 Tour de France. Moved to Ineos, then had some sort of complications with his health. Took a lot of time off the bike, and Ineos kept him on. They kept signing his contract and thinking, well, we're going to get something out of this. And it was good to see him back at this race fighting. And he helped Gegenhardt closely. I know they had a bit of a sporting embrace after that stage win for Gegenhardt. But I'm thinking more about Rui Costa in the final day of racing. A bit of a rogue result, but he's had a fantastic start to the year for Intermarché.
What a signing. Like we were all discounting Rui Costa. Oh, he's this former world champion. He'll not do anything. And then wins in Mallorca and then now wins a stage race. Like what a bargain. Yeah, he's definitely got a lot of result. Like that final stage, I don't know what was going on. How was Ciccone just alone? Like they really ripped pieces of flesh out of each other. And then you just had this like really thin GC group, and a few of them had riders like Theo Gegenhardt. They were thinking whether or not they should wait for Carlos Rodriguez, but they didn't. And then Arendsman followed the move. It was just a bit chaotic. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how it happened. I remember I looked away for like 10 seconds and I was like, oh, Arensman's away. When I was like, Rick Costa's coming across. But I didn't even click in my head that it like Costa was really in for GC. Because for some reason I thought that he'd been dropped something throughout the week, but no, he hadn't. And he was just super consistent this week. He got he got a top 10 in every stage apart from one. And then of course he won the stage today ahead of Arensman, despite the fact that he laid it out for like forever. Like pretty much. I was like, wow, Costa, because he said that he was very inspired by how Christoph came to that team and then started doing well. Like he won Shelter Plus last year, and yeah, he's really following in those footsteps. Like he's not out of it yet, even though he is like what 36, something like that, 35, yeah. 36.
And Intermarché have been good over the past couple of years of bringing in these older guys and sort of refining spirit. We spoke last week about how the staff changings have affected the team for the good. And we've seen Louis Meintjes come to the team. We saw even Enrico Gasparotto back in the day. He moved to this team and won Amstel Gold in 2016. This team does have a knack at just bringing in older talent and refinding their gold.
But anyway, it wasn't just Rui Costa taking a victory, as we mentioned, and overall at the Tour of Valenciana. The Biniam Girmay factor, it's back. It's his first stage race victory, I think, since the Giro. And he also showed afterwards that he has learned how to uncork a champagne, if you will. But what do you guys make of Biniam Girmay's form? He was up there in the Mallorca Challenge races. We know he has this huge block of classics races as well. So he's going back to Eritrea. He's going to the African National Championships. And what do you think about his chances of a good season?
I've got a point of pretentious information.
Was it not? Did he win after the Giro? Don't say the time trial.
No, at the Giro, it was a bottle of Prosecco.
Oh, okay.
Not champagne. Technically, it's not the same thing. And also, given that this race finished in Valencia, do you have a source? It's sparkling wine of some sorts. Was it Cava, given that it was in Spain?
Yeah.
Message him right now.
His team is sponsored by a wine dealer. So
Oh yeah, Sabu. Vini Sabu.
Yeah, Vini Sabu. God, what a good sponsor to have. Nevertheless, what was your
Yeah.
question? Sorry,
Yeah, what was
I
it?
got taken away.
What do we think about his form? Was that it?
Yeah. How do you? Because like that first stage, Bahrain put a lot of effort in to try and get rid of all the sprinters. He hung on in there, and yeah, took the stage win in Alti as well. So
Yeah, I am still surprised to how versatile Binny is, actually. Like, I don't know why I am, but like in the Giro last year, he was not slow, even in like the pure flat sprints. He was finishing top five in some big, heavy hitters like Demar was there as well, like, like Cav when he was there in like that first week when Cav won that stage. Binny was always up there, and he's just one of those riders who in the future should be even this year maybe could be contesting for the green jersey. He's got that Sagan-esque versatility that we saw back in the day.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say,
Do you
is
think?
Binny the new Peter Sagan?
He kind of is.
Like the young, like Christoph was asked in an interview before the stage, what is Biniam Girmay's weakness? And he said he doesn't have any.
like time trialing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess
Which
really
is
high mountains as well. Like he disappeared
yeah.
on stage too.
I mean, did he DNF the because he did DNF stage 4? Is that just because he was going over to Africa and it's just he didn't see much point in staying?
Allegedly, he had a headache. I'm not saying it that allegedly
Right.
makes it seem like I have a big conspiracy theory about it. It was
Yeah.
all a lie. No,
Yeah.
Antamache posted that it was because of a headache that he left the race.
So,
mean,
well, looking at his schedule, we got Tirreno Adriatico, we got Milan San Remo, E3, Gent-Wevelgem, which he's already won, as we know, Ronde van Vlaanderen, Paris-Roubaix, Amstel Gold, and then Tour de France for the first time.
Amstel Gold's a really interesting one because I do think he could do really well there. I never arrived at sort of towards the end of that list, but that was the one which actually stuck out in my head. I heard Roubaix and I was thinking, I don't know, but he could surprise there, to be fair. But I'm not sure how much I expect from him from a Roubaix. I always think of that's more of a rouleur-esque. I don't know. Perhaps Benny's just too light. I don't know if that's even like a thing, but he's talented enough to do it. But yeah, Amstel, that's right up his street when you consider that the likes of a Matthews and Van der Poel contest that very regularly. Binny's right there with them already.
Just thinking about the rouleur point for Roubaix and also with Sagan comparisons. Sagan, when he was sort of more slight, when we were looking at him in 2012, 13, 14, he wasn't contending Roubaix at all. He was good at the Ronde, but not really there in Roubaix. It was only until 2018 when he lost his kick a little bit on these uphill sprints that we saw him perform well at Roubaix when he won it in 2018, when that 2-up sprint with Sylvain Dillier. So probably Binny. I don't think Roubaix is his terrain. I think probably Sanremo. Thinking about Amstel Gold as well. Amstel Gold could be a good shout for him on that finish. It's a flat finish, could work well for a sprint. Biniam Girmay does have a good shot. Even maybe, I don't know. But about Pale, I think that race as well could suit Biniam Girmay. It's got a kicker at the end. If he hangs with it, it's a bit like Visegrad last year's Giro d'Italia. But I think everything has to really be built around the Tour de France. I saw in an interview early this week. He said that he knew he can't quite imagine what the support would be like if he did win the Tour de France, given that Eritrea has already been supporting him so much up towards this point. It would just be, I think it would be such a spectacle for him to do that. And I think there is a lot of pressure from Intermarché on him. Intermarché almost now feels like the Biniam Girmay experience. Yeah, they do have a lot of other strong riders, but Biniam Girmay is their frontman, and pushing him towards the Tour de France for success is all part of this project.
Yeah, he's so mature, like husband, father, but he's still only 22 years old, and yeah, symbol of a nation. Like, yeah, it's true. There's so much pressure on him, but yeah, fingers crossed for everything. But we'll see what the new Peter Sagan, African Peter Sagan. He's going to the African National Championships, as we mentioned. So hopefully,
Continental Championships.
Yeah, if he wins that, if he wins it, I want to see a jersey. Like, if they don't make the jersey, that would be, yeah, not right.
We saw UAE had an African Champions jersey a while back for Ryan Gibbons, and it was so how the jersey works is like 2 green stripes with the outline of Africa in the middle. I don't quite know how that would work. I'd prefer if he won the Eritrean National Championships.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a little bit worried because we haven't seen. There's not much of a precedent for African Champions jerseys.
I'm sure Intermarché would do a better job of any jersey than UAE's national
Oh, that's not hard.
jerseys.
That's not hard. I feel
Yeah.
like
The UAE ones,
Yeah.
they're so.
Don't you think it's odd that there's like an African championship? So there's not like there's like a European champs African. Is there like a South American, North American one?
There's a Pan American Championships. Well, they have the Pan American Games. I think, don't know if he's still the reigning champion, but Max de Keyser was the champion at some point. I've seen in like cyclocross, the champion has won it maybe 5 or so years ago. It's a really cool design. It's got like it's like different bars of loads of different colors. It looks very cool. I urge you to Google it. But in the women's peloton now, the Oceanic champion is now wearing the jersey, which is blue stripes and a big wave. So hopefully we're going to see more Continental Championships jerseys in the men's pro peloton soon.
Speaking of national championships or championships, the Colombian national championships isn't happening when all the other nations. It's happening right now. Actually, as we're recording, the road race just finished. Our new Colombian champion is Esteban Chavez from EF Education Easy Post. But we also had Miguel Angel Lopez win the national time trial championships. So Nairo was actually at the road race. He got third. And if any of you recall a crying Colombian as well in the Yorkshire junior races, he actually is the new under-23 national champion for Colombia. Is there anything we can draw out of the Colombian national championships other than Miguel Angel Lopez is raging with passion right now?
I think I just saw this like relief from you and I just in concert at that it was like, oh, Esteban Chavez, because we were like, EF are gonna make a great kit. Just
exactly.
Like,
that is my sentiment.
Yeah. I'm happy with that. Yeah, Esteban Chavez. That's a cool one. I do always kind of think back to the days of like when Chavez was like a really like big GC leader, and it's always quite nostalgic. And it's always just like we saw a bit of Albert Dauphiné last year, but I really wish I yearn for the return of Chavez.
Yeah, I think this is sort of a popular victory amongst the fans. Esteban Chavez, 2016 peak Chavez was great. There was such an interesting narrative with him as well because we were waiting for we thought Nairo Quintana was going to be the big Colombian, and all of a sudden Chavez just suddenly ascends and has sort of 1 year at the top, then fades into obscurity. He had, I think, Epstein-Barr or a medical problem that did hinder his chances. Fought back with a stage win at the Giron 2019. That was also a bit of sort of a fan favorite moment to see him fighting back at the top level. And since then, sort of just been cruising about, really. Moving to EF, which seems like a natural fit, to be honest. And now he's going to be wearing that jersey. However, I do wonder with EF, given that when they had Sergio Higuita, they sort of matched up the national champions jersey for Colombia with the sort of overall jersey aesthetic. In 2019, it was like the bath bomb. 2020, it was sort of radar. This year, it's sort of like not shadows, but it's like sort of like patchwork of different shades. We're going to have different shades of yellow on the top. We're going to have socks where one of them is darker red and one of them is lighter red. So many questions here for EF and their jersey designers over at Rafa.
So anyways, EF Education jersey designs aside, we are introducing a new segment, which we're calling Rider of the Week. And basically, each of us are going to present a rider that we think is the Rider of the Week. And then we'll have a vote between the three of us. And of course, you can join in the comments down below if you think we're all wrong. But Patrick, we'll let you go first. Who has been your Rider of the Week?
So my Rider of the Week is Thomas Gloag for Team Jumbo-Visma, because I think that was just a really outstanding performance in an era where we are very used to young riders now coming up and just kind of smashing it out of the under-23 ranks. It seems like a bit of a norm now. You forget that it's not just like the normal thing. Like didn't used to be the normal thing. If this happened 5 years ago, this would be an absolutely sensational thing. But finishing 6th place overall in GC and also finishing in, I think it was 3rd place or 2nd place behind Teo Gegenhardt, I think, on his stage win. Really great performance from Thomas Gloag there in a team where you really need to fight for your place in terms of GC, considering just how stacked they are. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Thomas Gloag can do this season and in the future.
Okay. I mean, it'd be easy to say De Lie. But I'm actually going to say Nielsen Paulus because we didn't really mention the Marseillaise.
Who saw that coming?
Well, no, I'm sorry. He won a 1-day race and a stage race this week. I think he's being overlooked a little bit because we're talking about a Valenciana and about how great Rui Costa's victory was. But to win a classic race and then to win a stage race, bear in mind, La Marseillaise is usually cursed. It has this long running curse, but if you win La Marseillaise, your season is going to be in doubt and you're going to get poor results from that point onwards. Neilson Powless has proved that wrong already, and he's taken 2 pretty big wins in the space of 1 week. That's quite impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that is very true. Obviously, I'm going to go for Skilmos. No, I'm kidding. I was going to go for Rui Costa. I think it was just impressive. Like you said, Patrick, he stayed basically in the top 10 or was top 10 on every single stage apart from the first one, and coming back and kind of rejuvenating his career. I am a Rui Costa fan, so I'm not even going to be, but I am totally biased. I think something that we didn't mention either. You were talking about young guys just smashing it out, Patrick. We didn't touch on the giant that is Josh Tarling, who finished second on the final stage as well in Etoile de Besseges, the time trial. And he's also been commanding the peloton as well. I think such a young guy already doing this in his first year is just insane. But but we have to settle this somehow. I'm going for Rui Costa, Thomas Gloag, and Neilson Powless. So how do we settle this? Because obviously we're not going to vote for each other's.
So let us know down below in the comments section.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. That's how we're going to do it.
The week.
Yeah.
Or actually, I mean, I guess Sportsman's Prize. I think we should give a little shout out to Axel Laurence for helping out Valentin Ferrand when he was hanging off a bridge at the Etoile de Besseges.
True.
That is very true. But that's basically it for our second ever episode on the Echelon Cycling Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, whichever platform you use. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you around.